Well, let's get started today. Good morning, Brad. How are you doing today?
Greg here. Thanks for having us for this special session.
Hey, thanks, Brad. Pleasure having you here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on CRM technology trends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks joining from different parts of the globe. My name is Noor Basha, a Marketing Director at WinWire Technologies, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. So as you know, today's topic is CRM technology trends to watch in 2020. So in next 20-25 minutes, we will learn or hear from Brad about the rising CRM issues, some of the new features and integrations and the impact of wider technology trends on the CRM. So before we get started, let me quickly highlight few housekeeping items. During the webinar, please feel free to post questions and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end. We are recording this session and we'll be sharing with you the presentation and recording in next 24 to 48 hours. So with that, let me introduce you to today's session speaker, my colleague Brad. Brad brings over close to 19 years of experience in the pre-sales and architect roles around Microsoft suite, especially on the Dynamics platform. At WinWire, Brad is responsible for solution delivery-led architecture, technical delivery around Dynamics 365 solution for some of our leading global organizations. Now, with that, let me hand it over to Brad for us to take an insights into some of the latest technology trends to watch in 2020. Brad, over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Noor. Again, thanks everyone for joining. I'm excited to be here today to talk about this topic. As Noor mentioned, I've been in the CRM space for nearly 20 years now. I've worked with Siebel, Clarify, SAP CRM, NetSuite, recently with Salesforce, and now within WinWire, our focus is really around Microsoft CRM product, which is called Dynamics or Dynamics 365. One of the reasons why I'm excited about delivering this presentation today is because this is something that we've done privately for our clients, individually, just kind of walking them through at this time of year around what are some of the trends that we're seeing, what are some of the things that we're taking away from the year before and the past years, and starting to look out into the future. And I think this gives us an interesting opportunity to be able to try to, because we used to deliver those in what we call envisioning workshops, but this gives us an interesting opportunity to try to condense those workshops down into a 30-minute segment. And then also, for those of you that are able to stay around, I've got an interesting offer that we'd like to make around those envisioning workshops as we get to the end. So with that, that's my brief introduction. We do have a few poll questions because while I know that some of you submitted some information with your registrations, that's very helpful. There are a few other things we'd like to gather just to help us understand the audience a little bit better for today's presentation. So our first poll question is really understanding and understanding our audiences, your primary role within your organization. So are you someone who primarily works in sales and marketing, or maybe you're a customer service or contact center, or maybe you work in IT, or if what you do today doesn't fit nicely into one of those three areas, we've got the other option there as well. So if you could select one, and let's see, it looks like we've got a lot of folks that are on the IT side, maybe a few that are in the other category. Okay, we'll leave this open here for just a couple more seconds. All right, looks like we've got just about everyone that has responded. Okay, thanks a lot for that. So it looks like we've got most of the audience is in the IT space, so that's good. We'll tailor our conversation and tailor the presentation a little bit more towards topics that might be or topics that might be a little bit more interesting for those folks. So I've got one more question around CRM and where you are in your CRM journey. So this is an interesting question for us, and just understanding where your organization or your team could be. You might have an individual team that you work with, and where you find yourself on your CRM journey. So a lot of organizations might be in the stage now where they're actually evaluating a new CRM solution. So maybe you've got one, maybe you don't. You're looking for something new, or maybe you've got a CRM. Maybe you've already picked Salesforce or Dynamics or Pega or someone else, and you're going through and implementing that now, or maybe you've have already implemented a solution, or maybe today, we still have a number of clients that I speak with on a regular basis that don't have a CRM solution. They're using Excel, or they're using notepads and paper to be able to collect information about their customers. Okay, good. Looks like we've got about an even distribution where we've got folks that are looking at new CRM solutions, some folks that don't have a CRM solution, and then others that have already implemented. Okay, very good. So we'll leave that open for just another second here. All right, we'll go ahead and close. And we'll shift back to the presentation. So again, thanks for sharing that information. That's very helpful for us to understand how we can shape today's presentation. So with that, let me dive into the trends. So trend number one that we're going to talk about, and as we go through these trends, we are going to relate them all back to CRM. So it might not initially, when we start to talk about these, feel like it relates to CRM, but we will tie it all back into how these trends relate to CRM solutions today. The first one, and this is one that's really come up for me, I've done a lot of work with clients over the past several years around personalization. So personalization isn't anything new. I mean, customers want to be able to, or consumers want personalized messages. There's a recent survey that came out for me that said, that really stuck out for me, that said, well, 72% of consumers will really only engage with brands that tailor messages. And I think if you think about how you interact with brands, the brands that you work with, buy from, really you're looking for those tailored messages. Someone sends you, at least if someone sends me a generic message, most likely it's going to go into my delete box if I even read it at all. Now, the other interesting part of that is that 90% of those same consumers said that they will provide data to get a better experience. Now, that's nothing new, right? I mean, that's probably not a big revelation or anything like that, probably not a big trend. And the other part of this is the privacy aspect. So while anyone who's watched the news around some of the issues in social media, namely Facebook, there have been some other data breaches and such. The other interesting part about this survey for me, and keep in mind, these are the exact same people who just answered the question about personalization, said that 79% of those people said that they believe companies know too much about them, and they're concerned about their privacy and what happens with their data. So I think one of these big trends that we're going to see is how do we balance personalization, that need for personalization to be able to win consumers over, with also the privacy aspects to be able to keep them as consumers and win their trust. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about here for just a little bit. So as we look at key factors to consider, and I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, regulations and compliance. So these are your GDPR regulations. The state regulations are rolling out, for example, in California, the Privacy Act that California has recently rolled out, and other similar states in the U.S. and other countries that are doing similar things. So those, not a big revelation there. That's something that we've been working on as part of our marketing activities that fit into CRM for quite some time. But I think some other factors that consider, and these all come together, are firmographic factors. So for example, if the client you're working with or your business is in retail, the way the consumer privacy expectations for someone that, an Amazon might be different or is different than someone that, for example, is in the healthcare space where you're storing critical health information about a patient. So considering where you're at in those and there are other firmographic factors as well, but considering where you are in the industry spectrum and how that plays into a consumer's expectations, I think is one of those other factors. And then we've got demographic factors. For example, I like to call this the creeped out meter. So my creeped out meter is much lower than my parents' creeped out meter, and probably much lower than my grandparents' creeped out meter. So this is how much someone knows about how willing or what's the level of personalization that I'm willing to accept versus someone else. And they say, wow, they know way too much about me. I didn't realize that they just knew I was searching for a bicycle helmet on Amazon. Now I'm getting bicycle advertisements in Google when I do searches. That tends to creep some people out. So knowing those demographic factors and tailoring the way you advertise and work and with your consumers is important. The other part is geographic and cultural factors. So for example, similar to demographic factors, the level of personalization and privacy that maybe you're willing to accept in North America versus Europe versus Asia versus other individual countries and locations, states and locations within those areas may be different. So the key question I get, so when I present this, the key question I get is, yeah, okay, Brad, that'll make sense. That sounds good. But what does that have to do with my CRM? Well, if you think about it, what system actually has the data to know these demographic factors, that knows the geographical factors, what compliance situation you're in, whether if you're in Europe, it's GDPR, if you're in the US, there may be different compliance factors based on the state you're in, or if it's Canada, or if it's South America or other parts of Asia. CRM is what really ties together the personalization, so what you know about your consumers, together with, okay, how far can we go with that personalization? So that's where we feel like CRM fits in. And kind of coming on to the next trend, or moving to the next trend, is that it's not just about CRM. So one of the things that CRM was meant to address, and really business applications as a whole were meant to address, were breaking down these silos between sales and marketing and service, finance, operations, supply chain, so on and so forth. Well, if you look at solutions like NetSuite, Salesforce, and Microsoft, which is what we primarily work with, those silos have primarily been broken down. But one of the new silos or new challenges that we're seeing here is around kind of coming in with that privacy discussion, is how do you get that privacy and compliance data into your CRM, or working together with your CRM? There's a plethora of AI and MarTech solutions that are out there. How do you get those working together with your CRM solution? What about customer experience? For example, your Adobe solutions that are providing that web front end, your mobile front end to your clients, your employee experience, which is, for example, a Workday, and then combine that with all of the robotic process automation and intelligent automation solutions. So I think the real trend here is around, are we back to this discussion around best of breed versus best of suite? So best of breed. So it seems like once every decade or so, we get into these discussions in the business solution space around, okay, should we go best of breed? For example, picking an individual privacy and compliance tools, picking individual niche AI and marketing technology tools, picking individual customer experience tools and automation tools, and trying to use automation or integration tools to bring those all together with your CRM and other data sources. Or do you go best of suite, which is with for example, we were talking about, we do a lot of work with Microsoft, and Microsoft has a platform that really provides a lot of these capabilities together with partners like Adobe when it comes to customer experience, employee experience on the LinkedIn side, a number of AI tools, security is a key part of the Microsoft platform. Best of suite. The answer really there isn't a right or wrong answer. It's really picking one and knowing the implications and deciding where to go from there. So we feel like we're back at this discussion around best of breed versus best of suite, and how that plays in with CRM, or ties in, I should say, with CRM. All right, so trend number 3. So this is intentionally meant to be very hard to read. You can zoom in on some of those. There are a number of these AI ecosystem infographics that are available on the web. These are just 2 that I happen to pick out to help illustrate the point that you've had a lot of AI solutions that have come out onto the market, very niche solutions that do a very specific task, and a number of organizations have purchased these. What I think you're going to see, or what you are seeing, is that AI is being more and more embedded within your CRM platform. So with Salesforce, for example, it's Einstein. Microsoft is embedding a number of AI solutions within their CRM applications. And then there are also the AI builder platforms, or rapid AI development platforms, that are coming along as well as part of that. Again, kind of back to that best of breed, best of suite discussion that we were talking about earlier. We feel like a lot of these AI solution providers are eventually going to have to, or are going to be displaced by the solutions that are being offered by the CRM platforms themselves. And just to give you an example, it was funny because just yesterday I was finishing up our slides, and this blog post popped up on my screen, and it was Microsoft announcing they already have dozens of different AI capabilities within their CRM platform, but they just announced new AI features connecting and extending the Dynamics solution. So again, we do a lot of work with Dynamics, and that's why I'm using Dynamics as the example here. But this could apply to other CRM solutions as well. And this, just to give you a couple examples, so this is the screen that you see now is actually Dynamics 365, and the forecasts that we're looking at here are all AI driven. So when we look at that infographic, or when you go back and take a look at that infographic that we were showing before, you would see that there are probably a number, there's actually a bubble in there for sales forecasting. So what's going to happen to those solutions that are out there? Again, it's going back to that best of breed versus best of suite. If you're a best of breed, maybe you keep those AI solutions. If you decide you're going down the best of suite and you want AI embedded into your CRM, and maybe you pay a little bit more for it, maybe it comes for free. This is probably the other route as well, just to give you an idea. So I think I've got one more in here. This is another graphic of Dynamics 365, and you can see along the right-hand side, it might be a little bit hard to read. You can see it's actually automatically, AI behind the scene is automatically scoring leads. You get the who knows whom, so that's pulling information out of your email system and being able to figure out who else in the organization knows the individual that I'm working with. In some cases, that's actually pulling from your LinkedIn network too. So just to give you an idea of what we mean when we say AI embedded within CRM, might displace some of those smaller niche AI solutions. But having said that, that also somewhat depends on the path and route that you as an organization are going to take, whether it's that best of suite or best of breed. All right. Moving on, somewhat similar to the AI discussion that we just had, is around this discussion around robotic process automation. So RPA is probably one of the topics that's just as hyped as AI, right? So there's, if you're looking for a contentious battle between two hype technologies, RPA and AI are probably the two that are really out there for the last several years. But what we're seeing is a shift from robotic process automation to intelligent automation. So really, when I look at RPA, and I've got a long history with RPA, going back with some of the early solutions that were out there in OpenSpan and others. But what we've seen is a shift from just taking a process and taking the steps that exist today and then making a robot or a bot that goes through and does those for you instead of having a human do them. Within intelligent automation needs data. So it needs accurate data. It needs real data about a potential consumer, about a prospect, about a lead, about an opportunity, maybe financial information. In this case, a lot of that data is going to come from a CRM solution. Obviously, I talked about finance. That's going to be on the ERP side. But CRM is going to play a really central role, pivotal role in this move from RPA to intelligent automation. And you even see some of the vendors listed on the screen here. I was mentioning Pega earlier. Pega is really a leader in this in terms of how they purchased one of the leaders in RPA and brought them into their CRM solution, and are now a lot of the information I see from them, they don't even talk about RPA. They talk about intelligent automation and combining those two together to produce real business results and benefits for the organizations that they work with. Microsoft has also recently done this with their Power Automate suite, or Power Automation suite, and adding in an RPA tool that can be easily integrated with their CRM. Okay, so going to trend number 5, and this is one that I talk about, and I get it when I'm in rooms. I often see some eye rolls and say, hey, we've been talking about data for the past several decades, and you're not really talking about anything new. And I'm saying, well, yeah, it's still all about data. And this may not be so much a trend as it is a warning, but really all of those things we just talked about, AI, intelligent automation, the machine learning tools that are available as part of these platforms that are out there today, and the privacy and security tools, they need good data. And that probably goes without saying, but I think I still see a number of organizations that I work with, and no presentation would be complete without the good, the bad, the ugly. I'm going to start with the ugly instead of the good. We're going to work our way. We're going to go from negative to positive in this presentation. But I found this survey, and I thought that that's really somewhat consistent with a lot of the clients that I work with, and that about 25% of your average enterprise CRM databases have inaccurate or incomplete data. I actually thought that's on the low side. I think it's actually higher than that, but that's what this particular survey came out with, and I think a lot of people can often relate to that. The other shocker, which may not be a shocker, but over a third of those organizations also leave that data as is and they use it. So that's fine it's actually not fine, but it's less wrong if you're an individual seller, marketer, or other that's potentially using that data. You can sometimes pick out the inaccuracies. You can see where there's duplicates. You can see where there's an incomplete address, or where you've got 2 John Smiths or 2 Jane Smiths, and those records need to be merged. But when we start to add AI, intelligent automation, when we start to leverage that data to be able to balance that personalization versus privacy equation, what happens? So, a lot of these tools are sold as a magic button that will solve those problems. Of say, oh yeah, you've got bad data. We'll put our AI solution on top of it. We'll put automation on top of it. We'll put our tools on top of it and it'll all be fixed. Well, what actually happens is the data stays the same. And then what I see is it actually ends up amplifying the inaccuracies. So before, when I was talking about individuals can go in and when they read a report or they look at it, they can find that bad data. But when an AI tool is doing everything behind the scenes, it just makes it that much worse. It actually amplifies those inaccuracies because now they're not getting caught, and maybe now they're being used in the insights, the reports, the dashboards, et cetera, that those tools are creating, or in some cases in a privacy tool, maybe sending out messages to people that shouldn't be getting them. So it started with the ugly. We just talked about the bad. I'm not going to do the bid. I'm going to talk about the easy, which was also good. But I think one of the things that we're seeing, and I know we've spent some time talking about best of breed versus best of suite. I think in either case, there are a number of data quality tools today that, oddly enough, as much bashing as I just did on AI, they're infused with AI, which are actually helping to improve the data within your CRM solution. Now, there's intentionally an inanimate person there that's actually pushing that easy button, and that's because I think some of these tools often, I mentioned earlier, let me take a step back. I mentioned earlier, this is also not so much a trend, but also somewhat of a warning. A lot of these tools are often sold as solutions that will fix all your problems. You just plug it in and away you go. You still need, what we find is that you still need that data governance plan. You still need a team that's able to go in and use those tools. They do make it a lot easier, and they do make it a lot simpler to be able to improve the quality of your data, but it's not those tools aren't something that you just plug in without a plan in place and without a governance approach. So a little bit there. So let's see where we are on time. So we're doing pretty good. To wrap things up, so one of the early on lessons that I learned in delivering these types of workshops and presentations is that sometimes clients can take this information away and feel like they can use these trends as a strategy. But what really you need to look at, because not all trends are going to apply to all organizations and all businesses. So what we really find is, use the trends, or our recommendation is take the trends that apply to you and they work within your strategy. So if you don't already have a strategy, most organizations do, but so I shouldn't say it like that, but use the trends within your strategy. Don't use them as a strategy. And likewise, I talked earlier about no presentation can be complete without a good, the bad, the ugly. Also, I don't think any presentation like this can be complete without a Dilbert slide. So I saved it for the end rather than the beginning, but here's our Dilbert slide. I think, a cheap plug here would be, or I should say shameless plug here would be that one of the things that we at WinWire do help our clients with is understanding their CRM roadmap and helping them to assess where not just these trends, these are some that I picked out, but there are actually a lot of other things that play into a CRM strategy and into the overall organization strategy. But one of the things we do is help organizations understand which ones are applicable to them, which areas are most applicable to them. Also, what's that balance between, for example, if you've said, personalization, we've got a personalization capability, we've got a privacy capability, how do we bring those together? How do we really balance that? We help organizations kind of look at that, the best of breed versus best of suite discussion. We help organizations with those types of questions and assessments. And some of the other things we talked about too, how does robotic process automation or intelligent automation fit within your CRM strategy? How does AI fit within your CRM strategy? And also, of course, the data piece, that's probably where most of the work we do is around data, but some of those other areas come into play when we talk about that. So just to give you a, again, shameless plug, but how all this fits together into what we do and how we help our clients with CRM. So with that, Nora, I think I'm right on time. So let me pass things back over to you to see if we have any questions. I did hear a couple dings, so I think we've got a couple questions out there.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot, Brad. Certainly, I have a few questions. The first question from Mark is, he asked, who do we see as the CRM vendors right now, major CRM vendors today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think from my perspective, it depends on the size of your organization. So, for example, if you're a larger enterprise, the major CRM vendors that we tend to see coming up in the evaluations that we perform and the assessments that we perform, I would say are Salesforce, Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, and occasionally Sugar. Sugar's pulled off a little bit there, but occasionally you see Sugar. And if I were to pick two, I would say the two that primarily, unless an organization already has SAP or Oracle, the two that primarily boils down to is Salesforce and Microsoft. So those are the two that we see most often, and some of those others are out there too. And if you're a mid-market organization, you might have Zoho or others that come into play. And then there are a number of niche CRM solutions like HubSpot that fit into the marketing, or traditionally fit more into the marketing space, that have also added CRM capabilities to their stack. But I think it really boils down to Salesforce and Microsoft in most of the cases that we see today. Most of the clients we work with.
Yeah, I think that answers. That's I think gives a good list of CRM vendors. But I think it boils down to the next question: if there is any specific highlights that you can focus around Microsoft and Salesforce, major differences.
Yeah, that's another good question. So when I look at some of the differences, so I think in some of the assessments that we've done and the strategy work that we've done, Microsoft tends to win against Salesforce when it comes to total cost of ownership. When clients tend to have Office 365, so they see that integration benefit between Office 365 and Dynamics. Sometimes Azure comes into play there as well. Then there are a few other benefits as well. I think on the Salesforce side, Salesforce tends to come into play more often when, as you might expect, total cost of ownership isn't as big of a concern, but clients maybe are looking for there's a specific solution out on Salesforce's App Exchange, for example, that they want to pull in, or maybe a specific industry solution that's been built on Force.com, or maybe they already have an existing Salesforce installation. So I think those are, this is really a pretty long discussion, but those are just a few key points on differences between the two.
Perfect. We got one more minute, but I just quickly wanted to touch upon the other question for the day is, can you quickly discuss more on Microsoft as a best of suite platform, which you were highlighting in the presentation a few minutes back?
Oh yeah, so Microsoft as a best of breed solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or best of suite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting how Microsoft has built out their solution stack. So I think this is really somewhat unique, and one of the reasons why we work with them, because they have the underlying core server architecture. So with Azure as the base, that gives you a lot of the capabilities that you need to build out a secure, reliable, scalable infrastructure. They've added collaboration and security tools on top of that with Office 365 and Microsoft 365. And then when you look at how that all ties in together at the top with Dynamics 365 and sales applications, marketing applications, contact center and service, field service, retail, I could go on down the line, right? And then infusing all those with artificial intelligence, infusing them with the Power Automate capabilities that were automation and integration capability that's there. I think that is a very interesting. Microsoft presents a very compelling proposition for our clients, for customers that are looking for that best of suite solution that is well integrated.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Brad, for taking up those questions. It's really interesting. Again, thanks everyone for taking time to join this session to hear about some of the latest CRM technology trends. If you have more questions or queries, please write it to us at marketing@winwire.com, and we will be more than happy to take those questions. And thanks, Brad, again for taking time to deliver this session. Really insightful. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.